Alright, welcome back everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at a long video basically covering how to perform on high ping. We're looking at Chapix taking some early game fights, Chapix taking some mid game fights where he's at a disadvantage of playing off the back foot, as well as Castery taking a mid game fight to his advantage, and then a full volume of BL Hen who got second on NA. He was actually 1 point off winning the full NAS finals, and he plays on like 4G Wi-Fi, like 140 ping on average. To begin with, we're going to take a look at Chapix, who starts this fight on the back foot. This is a big thing that people ask me the whole time, is how do you play on high ping? How do you play cross-region, especially in solos, where it's extremely punishing, right? And we're just going to look here as to how this fight starts, and then how Chapix is able to counteract and deal with the other player. Okay, so the fight starts, Chapix gets beamed, he makes the space backwards as the other player, away from the other player. Now here he gets hit, and you can see what he does here, this is quite unique, is he makes all the space, he realizes he's getting pressured a lot, so he actually goes out, makes these like bait ramps out to the side, right? Kind of to bait like he's going for a high ground take, so this would force this high guy to come up and look for the high ground play. So while Chapix is doing that, he sets up those bait ramps, and then he goes back down, he gets his heal off. That little bit of bait play there to make space, and also like confuse the opponent about where he's going to exactly be, buys him the time to get off all these minis, and then finally go for a counter play and actually get some damage off in return. You can see Chapix basically fully slows down this fight. We're going to see how he plays these angles in a second. He hasn't got a single bit of damage back on his other player. Here he gets a nice little timing peak with other players swinging their pickaxe multiple times. Alright, this is a very useful peak that I've seen Chapix do a lot in mid-game fights. Basically, he flips the ramp just like this, and he's able to get these timing little peaks just like that, right? He's basically double right-hand peeking under the stair and under the floor this way. So when the player is coming from that pickaxe swing from above, he's always got a right-hand peek. Allows him to get enough damage off here to be confident. So if we skip forward a little bit of a second. Now Chapix knows he's got that damage off, he hears the other player not heal. He's going to play, and now he's all this space on low ground, right? All the space he's made. He's able to sneak around, buy a little bit of time, play patient, and then finally come through and kill the other player. All he did in that early game fight, or this mid game fight even, was just make space, and then bait the high ground take to get his heals off, and then finally he's very cautious about his round peaks to get damage off in return, and that allows him to go for a big play at the end. Alright, this next fight we're going to see how Chapix sets up a box line situation with other players playing defensive. He's acting a bit more like aggressor. So he gets those white tags in, and now he doesn't actually want to throw away his advantage, right? He's got that 50 HP advantage. No, the player hasn't really had time to fish, or probably doesn't have any other heals. So we're going to see how he sets up his box fight from a different angle here. Basically just pressures, uses a lot of AR. Now he comes in, and you can see how defensive this line is. He's basically keeping a lot of distance between him, playing the range of the pump, and waiting for the other player to make a peek. The other player with a lot of mats, he's just going to stay in here and just turtle up for a long time. But you can see how defensive he is. He doesn't actually want to go anywhere near this guy or go for wall replace. Wall replaces are so 50-50 because you can just get caught on a pickaxe swing on high ping, right? He plays his extremely long angle, baits his pickaxe up multiple times. This is something that not a lot of players do. You see how he's baiting his pickaxe to try getting the player to double edit. And then here, he's basically doing the exact same thing. Look at this, again, really defensive angle where he's just pressuring through a window, right? Like, just to waste the guy's mats and not even take that 50-50 shot at all. Now he resets from above, catch the player, really nice open edit, plays that range of the pump and wins the fight just like that. In this next clip, we're going to take a look at Castery, who takes some aggressive mid-game fight after playing for a beam. If you don't know who Castery is, he's a really well-performing solo player, got 9th in the most recent FNCS, and this is him playing about 80 to 90 ping on NA. You can see he's using line of sight to get a beam in Storm. He gets that crack dink to begin with, and this is how he sets up his fight. He immediately comes from high ground, sets up just like this, goes to SMG spray in to try ending the fight quick, and now this is where he resets. Look at the crosshair placement to get this wall up top, gets that wall off up top, completely blocks this player off, and where does it force the player to go into, right? He either goes into this tile over here, or he comes directly Castery's right. Gets the piece control as the player comes forward, cone slide, shield crack, and then look at this movement. Gets the edit and swings left the whole time he's doing this edit to get a free shot without even getting traded in return. All he did there was just good crosshair placement as a player was coming out and knew exactly where his escape options were. Player wants to make space and try getting minis off. He blocks that top escape off and forces him into an angle where he can cone and get the wall control. We're going to be looking at Hen from Become Legends, who actually he was playing a 4G on NA East on like 120 ping average while streaming, and he got second place, and he was 138 points, and he was 1 point off getting first on NA East playing on 4G, which is a bit ridiculous. So we're looking at his play style, how he positioned to avoid mid-game fights, because that's the biggest thing, is avoiding mid-game fights basically, because you can't really take a mid-game fight while being on extremely high ping, and then also just breaking down his really amazingly well-played endgames. Alright, first thing we're going to be looking at is how he's positioned on first zone. He basically rotates from Misty, which is a normal landing spot, gets a couple fish, and then comes up to this hill early. He likes to get on a very high position on a hill where nobody's going to really push into him. And then now rotating to second zone, you're going to see again, he plays this very far edge, looking for tags from this bush, surge, and then he comes in here and he boxes completely on edge. He doesn't want to go any more central and risk that exposure of him running in the opening, getting beamed, and then somebody forcing a fight with him, because he's obviously going to lose it, right? He plays these complete edges, and you can kind of think this is going to be dead side edge, right? Because he is completely on the edge of zone, where nobody's going to be really rotating up through this mountain or over the top of this mountain. Now, again, he's got quite an easy rotate onto third. Let's say third was a bit worse. He's still on this dead side where you can have a free rotate around into zone. On his rotate into third, actually, he came from this south spot down here. He came the whole way in, and he did like a wrap. Instead of just white lining straight in and getting on this bad spot here, he decided to do a wrap rotate, put himself in a much better position where he's able to come in and also position on height, elevation, playing off this hill. It's the same thing, comes in on this elevation and gets in early. Now coming into fourth, he decides to do a very, very late rotate, basically going as late as possible here. He comes in zone, positions above the player next to him, and he gets above. This whole time, he's just playing that dead side edge, waiting, rotating as late as possible, and always getting that elevation above people, so he can recycle a pad later, save his own pad. As you can see here, as soon as this player forces a box fight with him, expands, makes space, expands again, disengages the enemy, and makes space. He doesn't actually want to ever get in a situation where he's relying on holding a wall. He just wastes all of his mats and just makes distance between him and his opponent. Gets him focused because of it, but he just spams builds and makes a lot of space each time he does get spammed. You can't really play like off a counter peak like a normal player would. You can't play trying to exchange damage to survive himself. Basically just has to make space and leave and disengage, which uses all of his hard mats. Again, he gets a really far fifth zone, and he's actually going to decide to wait and rotate late on this zone. He doesn't want to rush it and go early, mainly because he can recycle a pad, can look for a pad from above, and he also might have a free rotate. The thing is, nobody's really going to build this zone, right? Everybody up here is obviously just going to recycle a pad or pad themselves. As you can see, people pad from up top, and he's stuck down here just waiting. It's a nice beam on players above him, and he starts rotating for free. Makes this full rotate basically for free, not using mats, and just trying to get kills out of the air on people it's holding. It's a lot of white tags on people deep storm. Starts coming forward again, and this is something that Hen is really good at, is he's always marking and knowing exactly where he wants to come to zone, right? He realizes he doesn't actually have to get off this hill. He can basically come in at this elevation. Up an elim there. He can come in at this elevation and get on top of enemy players' builds for free. Here he gets a massive amount of damage, but because of the high ping, he's not able to force his way into the box. And now he's only 240 mats on high ground, which is a bit shambles. Now, from this high ground position, he can't actually hold high, obviously only 240 mats. It would take like around 420-ish mats to actually get into end of zone from the front side. So he's deciding to play just a little bit backside on height, looking for a refresh. He gets quite lucky here in a second, where he actually picks up a player who doesn't expect him to be above at this backside elevation. Picks a free limb on the Hornet. All the mats, actually misses a couple of mats because he's not pickaxe out. Misses all the metal, but he gets 500 brick off that. We'll see how he plays this brick. He immediately wants to come for height from backside, but he realizes he can't really hold it because there's a guy going for it front side. High pads and choose a really safe landing spot on good elevation. It's unlikely to get shot at. He doesn't want to play a mid-ground level a lot of other people, because as soon as somebody takes that one wall on him, right, he's going to just die. He plays a high ground level, basically second height underneath him. As soon as zone pulls far like this again, he starts rotating. Just quickly to note, he actually went actively towards this edge, right, of zone. Instead of just cutting through the middle, where he's likely to get contested on either side, he actively went towards the edge of zone to avoid somebody contesting and taking height or spraying him from either side. Hugs this edge side of zone, recycles a pad. Again, chooses a really high elevation for a landing spot. He doesn't really want to play a mid-ground level with people below him. He can call Reno, who's actually the owner of BL, calling his mats for him, and he realizes he actually has to go for a refresh, looking for opportunities back here. And this is where he decides to play a little bit further back on the backside, looking for a refresh on low ground. He's very on the edge here, and you can see how close he is to the end of zone. He doesn't want to rush this rotate. There's no need for him to rush in with only 10 builds worth of wood. He doesn't want to rush in zone and get in there early. He may as well come as late as possible, especially with Fish. Look how thorough he is here. He completely clears out behind him before he plays this one flop. Clears out again, clears out deep behind him, looking for people playing floppers as well. It's the next one off. It's the final flopper off and starts coming in. Now the timing is good where he can come into zone, right? Because everybody who's already in zone, they have to go to next zone. You think where people would come in from around here, this like choke point of zone, all of these people have to move now. And he can come in at that timing where they're starting to leave, and he can come in through the old recycled builds. That 15-second kind of period where he played those floppers, three floppers worth in Storm, basically saves him this game because he's able to come in here, catch this other player rotating out, come forward again. All the other players are leaving towards the front side of zone. Goes around underneath these builds, really good movement here. Gets down onto low ground again. You realise he has to play a low ground level towards front side of zone. He can't play a mid ground level at this point because he needs another refresh. He stays at the back side of zone. This is something that's very useful, especially in these kind of late, like third moving or coming to the final moving zone. You don't actually really need to be building things. Unless you know high ground's got an RPG, you can just play audio and play like sound cues around, because you know people are going to be extremely shambles at this point, right? He's just playing sound and waiting to see if he can get a beam on the player on low or a beam on the player on high. Picks up Furious. Now this is really good management of his inventory. Is he realizes he's shotgun dropped, he swaps and immediately goes for high with those floppers. Didn't pick up that many mats, but he goes for high straight away with that one flopper he had. Takes out securely. Instead of going for the mini, reloads RPG. Nice tight RPG. This guy makes a mistake of coming like too deep into zone. He should have been hugging further underneath. Back. Gets that 130 tag. Just commits to the air. All that in-game was him just playing extremely patient with the floppers to allow himself that little bit of a buffer time when zone started moving far again, he could come in, and then also playing that audio at the end. He doesn't need to build a box for himself on like third zone with only 5 people left. He can just play audio and play right and peak and wait for other people to come to him.